Hey guys, Steve here with the Scroll Saw Workshop. I get asked questions pretty often through my email about what I use to design my scroll saw patterns and also how I design my scroll saw patterns. And this is not going to be a tutorial. It's mostly just an overview so you can see that it's not really as difficult as you might think. The ideas are actually harder to come up with than actually designing the pattern themselves. So I thought I would show you just quickly here how I go about doing this. Let me close a couple things down here and let's close this. Today I'm publishing this pattern for this desk clock, mantle clock, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to show you real quickly how I designed this pattern and the way I put it together. So let's move this out of the way and bring the actual pattern over here. This is just the pattern itself without the base. So you can see we basically have a hole here. This is where the clock goes, some ornamentation, and then a place to hold the bottom of the clock. And in this case I'm using a 2 3/4 inch clock insert that will go right there. And the insert for the clock insert is 2 3/8 is what the insert is. So this hole right here has to be 2 3/8, and the diameter of the outside of the clock is 2 3/4 inch. So the outside of this has to be larger than 2 3/4 of an inch. So we'll start with that. I'm just going to take this interior circle, which I just simply come over here and pick my circle tool, draw it on the screen, and then I can set the size up here to anything I want. Now again, this is not a tutorial, so don't specifically try to figure this one out. And let's go here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this circle and I'm going to make a ring outside of it using a tool called the contour tool. So if I go up here and click on outside, then it will set a contour line outside of this internal line, in this case 0.4 inches wide. So that works pretty good. So I'm going to complete that circle, and now we have this piece right here. So we've got that piece ready to go. So that's all we had to do for that. Very simple. The next thing we need to do is we need to get the ornamentation for this part of the clock. And you can hand draw these. There's all kinds of free resources on the internet that you can use to download. Now CorelDraw is a vector graphics program, so the graphics that you use need to be in the vector format, and that just simply means that it's a mathematical equation that draws these shapes on the screen. So if you look at this one right here, let me change the color of it. This outline, this red outline right here, is actually a series of curves that are calculated as opposed to just drawn. So what that means is we can take this and resize it and not lose any image detail. Over here is a bitmap graphic that I downloaded off the internet, and you can see if we zoom in here we have these jaggies, and we really can't manipulate this. All right, with this one over here we can manipulate it. You can see there's no jaggies at all. So CorelDraw makes that really easy. You can simply go and download a graphic, select it. We can go up here to trace, click on quick trace, and now if we zoom in here and look at this graphic, we've now got a copy that we can use as a vector graphic. Now it might need to be cleaned up a little bit, get rid of a couple of these nodes, but in general we've got this bitmap graphic now converted to a vector. So we can get rid of all this. In this case, I used this ornamentation right here to make this clock. And let's keep the circle that we need for the clock. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to duplicate this clock by hitting Control D. I'm going to go up here to mirror horizontally. Now I've got two of them that are mirrored. So in this case you can see that we had this put together right here and here. So all I have to do is just take and grab this one, move it over until these two come together. That's probably a little bit too close, but close enough. We'll leave it at that. Now I've got these two objects overlapping. If I select both of them, I can go up here and hit weld, and it'll actually weld them together. So now it's just one piece. So we can put that in the middle of the screen. We can take our circle that we're using for the clock, center it up, bring it down. Now in the case of the final product, I actually got rid of these two nubs right here so they wouldn't stick out. But just for this demonstration, I'm going to leave them on there so you'll get the idea. So now we can bring our clock holder for this clock to go in over and line it up where we need it. Again, we can select both of those parts, use our weld tool. Now we've got that all welded together. If you look here on this clock, we have this little base and then a couple of bases underneath it. So what we can do is we can take and draw a box by going over here and selecting our rectangle tool. I can put that up there, center it up, and let's say I want to round over the corners like I did in this one over here. I can go up here and hit 0.2, whatever I want to set the round over at. So up here I'm actually setting these curves right here. Now I can weld these two together, and we've just about got that pattern completed just with a few simple clicks. Now in the actual pattern, the base that I use a double base, but we'll just make a single one here. Let's say this is the size of the board that we want to use as our base. Okay, what I can do is if I'm going to use 1/2 inch thick wood, I can make another rectangle here. I can make it 1 inch long and say 0.5 inches wide. So when I take this piece right here and center it up on this board right here, and I'll weld, or I actually subtract these, and you can see I've got a hole in this board that I can cut out. Now what we want to do with that hole is bring it up here, and again, not a tutorial. I'm going to weld those two pieces together. Now once we cut these both out, we can take this tab and put it in this slot. So our base will be, a flat base like this with a hole cut in it that we can put this in. It just makes it a little bit more secure of a fitting. And in the case of this one, I actually took, and the other part of the bases, I just made one a little bit bigger. And I won't go into detail on that. You can see it's just basically drawing a rectangle. So there's the pieces we need to make this clock, and that is probably 90% of what I do to make my patterns. There are times when I have to freehand draw items. I can also go through and hand trace items by using my pen tool. Let's say I want to hand trace this little piece right here. I can go through, just make some straight lines. And now if I select my pick tool, and again, not a tutorial, now I can come in and take these pieces and set these lines anywhere I want them. So I can go through here, make this fit the contour of whatever I'm trying to trace. Just by manipulating these curves. And now you can see, not very well done, but you get the idea. Now I've actually traced that piece, and it is now a vector which I can add to the pattern. So if I wanted to add it to this pattern, say like right here, then again I could just select both items, hit weld, and now that's part of the pattern. So I do a lot of hand tracing. I do a lot of CorelDraw tracing. I design and keep hundreds of pieces of clip art. Some of them I get off the internet in free depositories that I can freely download from. In other cases, I download, like say, a picture of a dog, and I'll trace that dog and turn it into a graphic. So those are the techniques behind what I do, and basically I've done this almost every day for 13 years. So I've got it down to where I'm fairly quick at it, and that's why you can see that I put out a pattern every day. And then also, while I'm thinking about it, if I select this, I can now resize this to any size I want and not lose any detail. Now in this case our clock wouldn't fit, but depending on the type of pattern, you can see I still have a fine line that I can cut. I can also come over here, set the outline to red if I want, or black, however I want to set it. I can set the interior to any color I want. So those are the keys of how I go through using CorelDraw, and I thought a few of you might find it interesting. So I'm Steve Good. Thanks for being here with me at the Scroll Saw Workshop, and we will catch you next time.